My Hero Academia was probably the biggest anime in the world almost immediately on release in 2016. It came out at a time that I would call the great transition, because by this point the Naruto manga had already ended for 2 years at this point, and the anime had like a year left of runtime, and I'm pretty sure the only reason we had that year left is because we were stuck in what I like to dub the Infinite Tsukuyomi filler hell. It felt like I was in an Infinite Tsukuyomi myself, tuning in week to week just to see bullshit. And then Bleach already ended with no signs of return, both from the anime all the way back in 2012, and the manga had already ended 2 years by this point, so we really thought it was never coming back. And One Piece, well, it's One Piece, it's still going on today. And, the point being that people were looking for the next big thing, and this isn't to say that there weren't other stories still continuing at this point, but My Hero came in to fill a gap that at least I believe a lot of shonen addicts had, and some other people, Deku's story seemed promising. The world itself felt alive in a way a lot of other stories didn't. But as the show went on, it became more and more apparent that My Hero Academia would never really live up to its full potential. And in today's video, I want to address this. I want to talk about the things that I think My Hero did perfectly during its tenure and runtime, and the things that I think they could have improved on that would have just made this story so much better and honestly cemented it up there as one of the greats. So with all that out the way, grab your food and let's get it done. So I do want to start this video off in a more positive light, because I do believe people are very quick to downplay My Hero and the things that it does well throughout the story. Myself included at times, I'll admit. But getting into it though, something I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me on is that those first 3 seasons of My Hero are just genuinely the best the story has ever been. It's just really good shonen. And I think of all the new gen anime, My Hero has the best first episode, and just honestly first couple episodes in general, It sets the stage great with All Might and Deku's characterization. It gives you a reason to care about them and their motivations. And then there's the background of Deku being quirkless and wanting to be a hero anyway, and just, everybody loves an underdog story. And then there's also All Might's history, his injuries, and the similarities between the both of them. And a thing that I think My Hero does very well right out the gate that I don't think a lot of people really talk about is that in that first episode, they really do set up All Might to be this larger than life character, and you genuinely believe it. Like, All Might comes in, everything's solved. You genuinely believe that out the gate. And looking at the rest of the seasons as a whole, I still believe Stain is one of the best characters that they have ever introduced in the series, and Horikoshi knows this, which is why he brought him back towards the end of the story. And his philosophy in general is just a catalyst that sets Shigaraki and the League of Villains on their path as a whole. His whole mini arc was also one of the best and most haunting parts of the early story. He felt threatening, and his quirk was the perfect amount of cool and creepy, but it also sets up something that would become a major plot point later on down the story, which is the quirk discrimination plotline. And this is an idea that I've seen done in other media, and I'm sure you have a lot, mainly being the X-Men. But the thing with the X-Men is that they suffer from all the things that I believe long-form comic book serializations suffer from, and that's having multiple writers, multiple visions, shifting visions, corporate involvement, and just generally gross mischaracterization of certain characters. And while My Hero fortunately doesn't suffer from these things to some extent, the thing that made it good was it being addressed in multiple ways throughout the series. Whether it was people like Toga and Stain who had taboo quirks, the heteromorphs, or just quirkless people in general. And while I think is addressed more so with characters with quirks, which makes sense, they are the majority of society, so the subsects of them that are born with these quirks, whether it be heteromorphs or taboo quirks, would experience more discrimination from both sides because they're a larger part of the population. But I do think the quirkless population could have been addressed a bit more. And I do think early Bakugo and Deku's relationship was some form of an allusion to this, with how Bakugo bullied him for being quirkless, And I think while the paranormal liberation arc was done well, especially with incorporating the League of Villains, I think a side story or maybe even a movie about how quirkless people felt oppressed could have been a really entertaining plot point. And now to address the League in general, because we've alluded to them, Shigaraki's rise was actually very well done to me in retrospect. Going through it the first time around, I honestly really felt like he wasn't a threat in general. Even with the Nomus on his side, I just didn't think the League of Villains were actually threatening. They had it just it felt the main reason they were still around was that the police just couldn't find them for some reason. Therefore, All Might couldn't go in to find them himself and just wrap it up. Which leads me to the biggest thing with All Might and All for One, and that's both of them being in the story. You know, it makes the history of the story feel more alive, but they do stall the story out a bit, in my opinion. And the final fight between the both of them before All Might loses the last embers of One for All is still, in my opinion, just the best fight in the entire series, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will agree with me on that. I do think the final fight towards the end is really good, but just All Might versus All for One, I always get One for All for One mixed up, is just really good, except for the giant jerk off hand that One for All had, which was just questionable at best. It was like, oh, I'm gonna put all my quirks in this hand, and then it's just this giant jerk off hand with drills coming out of it, you know, but whatever. But back on topic, the passing of the torch for that fight felt earned by that point, so I get it from that perspective. And after this, though, is where I think the story really, you know, peaked. And I know this is the consensus among a lot of people. And I will say the overhaul arc ending did wonders for Shigaraki, because him rotting off his hands was just genuinely horrifying and made me excited for where the story was going until it went where it did. You know, so before I do move on to that, I want to acknowledge a few things, and that is that Horikoshi honestly just doesn't get enough credit for being able to design such a diverse cast in terms of quirks, and you know, visually speaking, they're all distinct. And I feel as though all the characters in My Hero are just pretty memorable, especially in 1A, and they all kind of stand out on their own, even if I don't think all of them are especially impressive at all. And I'm looking at you, Mineta, and Guy with tail. And while piggybacking off of the whole characters thing, I want to speak about the relationships between them. They are honestly one of the best parts of the story. You know, the way that they interact with each other, even the less important characters, feels good. You know, I feel it's organic. I feel it feels believable to me. And finally, because I know somebody's gonna mention it, yes, the art in My Hero is fantastic. Like, this is, I don't feel like I need to speak on that. You know, you're gonna be hard pressed to find another mangaka as talented with a pen and paper as Horikoshi is. Like, that man, Weekly My Hero was holding Horikoshi back, and Weekly My Hero was phenomenal. I don't know if you've ever seen Horikoshi's drawing outside of Weekly My Hero, but dude, next manga he makes, he needs to be just the artist himself. I ain't gonna lie to you, he needs to be just that artist so he can focus on that, make it monthly, give him a great author. He's going crazy. He's going crazy. But now that we've established the things that I do like about My Hero, let's talk about what I think that it can improve on, or what I would like to call its imperfection. So starting off with the most obvious thing ever, in my opinion, is that I genuinely think My Hero's timeline makes no sense. The fact that the entire story takes place within like a year to a year and a half really just hurts the story, in my opinion. You know, it took All Might like a few years to fully master One for All to the best of his abilities, not to mention being able to get to the #1 spot. If I remember correctly, he spent about 5 years in America just training before he returned to Japan, and then he spent another year in Japan to get to the #1 spot within Japan. You know, he trained properly to take on All for One, whereas Deku had to pretty much do all of that and become the strongest hero in the world within a year. And I know that there are other stories out there that show their main characters becoming the strongest in the world within the same time frame, but I think with My Hero it bothers me so much more than anything else because they are actively in school, their first year of school. So I want to watch these characters grow properly and experience things. But the most important thing though is that I think it would make me believe the power-ups and training that they all go through more believable. Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo growing as fast as they did to the point where they caught up to almost every single and even outright surpassing the pro heroes felt so jarring to me, because these people have been at this for literal years and decades by this point. What do you mean these 15-year-olds came in, one who just got a quirk for the first time and is already washing them? I don't know. It was just a little bit, I can suspend my disbelief, bro, but you know, it gets to a point. But next, I do want to talk about the cast. And while I did praise the interaction and friendships between all of them, I think the cast is just way too bloated. It's just way too big. Because in Class 1A alone, there are like 20 different characters and like 10 of them are relevant. In Class 2A, and then there's Shinzo in Class 2A, who's like Aizawa's kind of pupil kind of thing, his own personal pupil. And then there's the actual pro heroes that you have to deal with because they have their own stories and drama to go through that are relevant to the story. Then there's the villains that have their own drama and things that are relevant to the story. Then there's the upperclassmen with Mirio, Sun Eater, and the spirally hair girl. I don't remember her name. But this is, I will say, a credit to Horikoshi in the fact that he was able to make so many compelling characters, so much so that I believe you can genuinely pick almost anyone as your favorite character in My Hero, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, I see that, I get that, I get why. Except Mineta. And if he is, I know what you are, we know what you are. But a lot of characters or plot points that involve a lot of the characters, to me, feel a little bit underbaked. I remember that whole trader plotline online where everyone's like, oh, Horikoshi forgot about the trader plotline. Horikoshi forgot about the trader plotline. And honestly, I genuinely believe he did, because it just being Aoyama out of nowhere just didn't land for me. I didn't believe there was any buildup. I didn't believe there was any foreshadowing for that. It kind of just happened. So it just fell flat for me and a lot of people. And before I do get to my biggest point, I genuinely think the story just needed to be a little bit darker, or even a bit more edgy as it went on. And I promise you, I'm never one to advocate for these things, but going from the lightheartedness of the early seasons to a darker tone would have done wonders for the story. And I genuinely think it should have happened and pivoted at the Vigilante Deku arc, at least for a little bit. Imagine him being a bit more extreme, you know, he's alone, everyone in Japan pretty much hates him and wants nothing to do with him, and then the villains are all across Japan going on a rampage. Have him send a message to the villains that are out there going on a rampage that he's being a bit more harsh, you know, so eventually that when Class 1A does go to bring him back, it feels more like a genuine fight, a push and a pull thing, and have them remind him of who he is and why he wanted to be a hero within the first place. I think a vital point of every hero's journey is to reject the darkness in a meaningful way. And that arc by the end just fell flat for me, because all it took was for them to talk to him for like 5 minutes. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll come back, guys, I'll come back. But now I do want to talk about my biggest problem with My Hero, and it's Bakugo. You know, I never liked Bakugo. I've genuinely never gravitated toward his character that much. You know, he spent years bullying Deku, and for some reason, everyone's just okay with it. And sometimes it felt like he even just outright tried to kill him. You know, he was loud, obnoxious, and honestly just kind of whining to me. And there are characters out there that I do like that are like this. You know, Naruto was very much like this at the beginning of the story, but he was endearing. You wanted to cheer Naruto on. You wanted Naruto was the underdog. And it's also ironic because Bakugo himself just calls Midoriya a crybaby so much. And I will admit, yes, Midoriya at the beginning of the series was very much a crybaby. I said that also. A lot of people did. But his growth as a character is something to be praised, I will say. And I know lots of people love him, so me saying this is going to be sounding blasphemous to the My Hero fans out there. But one thing that I heard that really stuck with me, that actually made me look at him in an even worse light, is that if he were a woman, I don't think he would be as loved by the fandom as he is. I mean, look at somebody like Sakura. They are honestly pretty similar. You know, they both bully the main character physically. They're both headstrong, brash, determined people. And the main difference between the both of them is how they're handled between the both of them in their own stories. But I can't help but feel that if Uraraka was the one who was placed in Bakugo's place, you know, treating Midoriya that way, we would be having an entirely different conversation. Like, we would be seeing levels of slander that we have never seen on the timeline before if Uraraka was the one bullying Deku. I'm just gonna say it out there. If Bakugo was a woman, people would hate him. People would hate him. And also, Horikoshi, stop drawing them little girls like that. Stop doing that, you know? We got enough to worry about with Oda when One Piece ends. We gotta whack that dude when One Piece ends. Love One Piece, but Oda, coming for you. Horikoshi, stop it. I think myself and a lot of other people are so harsh on My Hero because I believe of all the new gen anime that came out, it had the most potential to become not just another popular series, but a modern day classic. You know, it had all the recipes to do it. It had compelling characters, breathtaking artwork, amazing political themes, and a world that felt alive from the very beginning, so much so that it has a spin-off about its vigilantes, which does help to you know, make the world feel more alive. But maybe it's my want for comic books and their characters to be serialized in a way that's similar to how manga is as to why I put so much stock into My Hero, you know. And if Horikoshi had gone a bit further with the themes and maybe reduced the cast a little bit, we would be putting My Hero up there with the greats. But while the story is good, I just don't think anything outside of the characters is really noteworthy, because so many plot lines that had potential were wrapped up in honestly just the most Disney Channel way possible. And I'm looking at that the heteromophoric plot line by the end of the story. But that is the video though, you know. And if you made it this far, I do want to say thank you guys as usual. You know, I really appreciate you watching. You know, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also comment down below what you think My Hero could have improved on, or maybe just you think My Hero was peak fiction and I'd have horrible taste, so you could, you know, butcher me down there too. Because I do know I missed a lot of things that I just didn't want to make this video too long. But I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.